grab your weed killer, because today on Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania, we are taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nation's SH Monsterarts Biollante figure. Biollante is one of the most expensive releases Monsterarts has ever come out with, and it was one I passed on when it first came out. And then by the time that I realized I really should get around to picking up that figure, she went out of stock everywhere and was very, very hard to track down for a price I was willing to pay. But after a lot of trying, I got lucky and finally got a Biollante to call my own. So let's see if all that effort was worth it. Now, Biollante is a very large figure with a lot of great sculpting on her. She has a great green color to her skin that fades into different levels of green. There's some very dark bits, and then it fades up to very, very light areas at the tips of her spines and everything. And then we mix that in with some nice pinkish reds here in the mouth to accent the gums, the yellowy bone color of the teeth and the tusks, and even the very weird white eyes with a little bit of purple shading in there to make them stand out a bit more. All the scaling texture in here is really nicely done. Opening the mouth, we can see there's a lot of very sharp teeth, all individually sculpted in the mouth, and because it's a plant, they are both at the top and bottom of the mouth, covering the floor of it, which is very unique to this character. Now, something that's not as common with any Monsterarts figures I can think of beyond this one is they actually have used soft rubberized plastic, similar to something you'd see NECA do. Back here in the gums, there is a softer piece that smushes down when you close the mouth and expands out when you open it. Kind of find that interesting. It seems like something Monsterarts really tries to stay away from. Space Godzilla used a similar looking piece, but actually had it as hard plastic, so I was very surprised to see it be rubberized here. On the back of Biollante here, we have her fins that are kind of reminiscent of Godzilla's dorsal plates, but done in this mossy, grassy kind of look. We have thorns coming out of her, nice shiny black pieces here. And then coming down to the chest, or the main body of the piece, we have a little more rubberized plastic with this little piece here that fills in the gap of the neck, and then this cage here around her heart, or her core. Now this is actually a light-up gimmick on the bottom of the figure, which is completely not detailed, unlike many Monsterarts. We have a switch, and you can see it has an off position here in the middle, and then 2 dots on one side and a single dot on the other. Depending on which way you flip it, we'll go single dot first. We have a nice orange glow to the figure. And if we switch it to the other side, we have a nice red glow. Now, shutting off the lights, you can see this actually does have a really nice look to it. You can see it kind of radiating through the rest of the torso here. We'll switch it back over to the orange, which isn't quite as bright, but it's a really nice looking gimmick. It's very cool to have Biollante light up. With the way that there is no detailing down here, I almost would have rather they found a place to hide a plug or something so I could actually run her off of an AC adapter rather than risk leaving a battery in a collectible, but still very cool. Coming down the lower section of Biollante here, we do have more thorns and kind of a viney texture going through the rest of the body as it comes down to its legs, or lack thereof. Then we have 4 points here on the body that kind of serve as the legs themselves. We have 2 larger ones here in the back, and then 2 smaller ones up front. All have some really great texturing to them. They come up in kind of these back bent knees, and then we come down to the tendrils themselves, which are really nicely done. Lots more thorns on them and great painted detail. And then we even have these little vine pieces that are a soft rubber that overlap the joints. So as you rotate the joints, it kind of gives a nice look of continuation throughout the figure. Then we have the little individual heads here, the tips to the vines. They can open up. They have a nice row of teeth and a nice little tongue inside. Very, very cool looking. And there are 4 of these total. For articulation, Biollante is loaded. You can open her mouth very, very wide, and you can shut it pretty much all the way, which is great. We have a series of ball joints here at the neck that let her look very, very far up, that we could use this extra piece here to bridge the gap and make it look like it's a continuous biological form instead of leaving a large gap in the figure. Then, of course, you can move the head or something like that and just give her very different looks and heights depending on what you have her facing. Here on the back, we actually have an additional joint where we can actually raise up her entire torso and tilt her further forward so we can get a really nice hunch out of the character. So if she's looking down at an opponent, we can get that as well. It does leave a bit of a gap here at the base of the figure, but it's really not all that bad because if you have her in this pose, you're probably concentrating more on the front of the character anyway. These little joints here, where kind of substituting for feet, are on on hinges so they can move a little forward and back. Not a huge range of motion, but there is some movement there. Down here at I guess what you'd call the knee segment, there is a ball joint in there. We also have a ball joint up here at the top that gives you a little extra range of motion. And throughout the vine, we have a series of ball joints. They don't stay together particularly well, kind of what you'd come to expect with a Monsterarts figure. But you can bend them in and out a decent amount. And then all these individual elements of the vine have a curve to them. So you could take that curve and rotate them around and use that to straighten out the vine more or to have it wrap around more, which is a very interesting way to do the articulation here. And each of the heads on the vine have mouths that will hinge open and shut, which is a nice addition to the detail, as well as a ball joint right there at the base to allow articulation like you'd find in the head of any figure. For a size comparison, here is Biollante next to the Godzilla Jr. Rebirth figure and the Super X2 from SH Monsterarts, and she's freaking enormous. This figure gets her own shelf pretty much to herself in my Detolf cabinet because she's big enough to basically demand it. But that's part of the character. She's supposed to be large, and I think she might actually be a little undersized if you compared it to the movie. I think Biollante might have been a little bigger and definitely a little wider if I remember right. Plus she had more large vines coming out and smaller tentacles. So this doesn't even fully capture the enormity of the character, but it's still really damn big. And in conclusion, I think Biollante is one of my absolute favorite SH Monsterarts figures. Maybe that is heavily influenced by the fact that I tried so hard to get her and it was such a big ordeal to get my hands on this figure that I just kind of needed it to be a great figure in my mind to justify everything I went through to get it. But I really don't think that's the case. I love the sculpt on this figure. I love the paint applications on this figure. I love just playing around and manipulating the vines. Though they do pop apart, they've popped apart a lot in the process of doing this review. They move in a very smooth fashion, and it's just enjoyable to pose this figure around and play with the different display options with it. The light up feature is cool, though I don't think I'm really ever going to use it, but I have Hot Toys that have similar light up features that I'll probably never use outside of doing a photo shoot or a review, but it's still cool that they're there. So Biollante gets a very, very strong recommendation. The only thing that really hampers that recommendation is the fact that now she's harder to get than ever, and you're gonna pay a lot to get Biollante in your collection now. Probably several times the original retail price by this point. So it's hard to really say it's a recommendable figure on that factor, but if you do have the ability to get your hands on one, don't pass on it. It is a great, great piece. Now, we haven't been getting a whole lot of SH Monsterarts figures lately. The line's kind of been quiet for a while now, ever since Mecha King Ghidorah came out. But there were rumors a while back that we were going to get a Biollante Rose form, and I'm curious to see if that ever comes to fruition. Definitely not a character that I think is very high on a lot of people's lists, and quite honestly, a large piece like this that's not quite as iconic as the full Beast Mode Biollante might be a bit of a hard sell for a lot of people. But I definitely would pick it up early if they put it out, instead of making the same mistake again. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been our Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania. Stay tuned for more to come.